The cold dawn of February 8, 1587, cast a pale grey light over Fotheringhay Castle in Northamptonshire, England. Inside its towering stone walls, a grim and ceremonial quiet had settled like fog. Mary Stuart, better known as Mary, Queen of Scots, had spent her final hours in solemn prayer and reflection. A queen born to rule, raised in the opulence of French courts, and destined for dynastic greatness, now stood at the edge of death, condemned by her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I of England, under the dark cloud of conspiracy and religious division. This moment would mark the culmination of decades of political intrigue, betrayals, and failed plots that had transformed Mary from sovereign monarch to royal prisoner. Mary was born on December 8, 1542, at Linlithgow Palace in Scotland. The only legitimate child of James V of Scotland and Mary of Guise, she ascended to the throne just 6 days after birth when her father died. Scotland, a kingdom constantly under pressure from its more powerful southern neighbor, England, found itself ruled by an infant queen. The early years of Mary's life were shaped by regents and religious factions, and by the time she was 5, she was sent to France, where she would grow up in the luxurious French court. In France, Mary was educated as a Catholic and betrothed to the Dauphin, Francis, whom she married in 1558. When Francis ascended the throne in 1559, Mary briefly became Queen of France. However, Francis's untimely death a year later left her a widow at 18. With no clear role in France, Mary returned to Scotland in 1561 to assume her duties as queen, walking into a volatile kingdom rife with Protestant-Catholic conflict. She, a devout Catholic, now ruled over a predominantly Protestant realm. Mary's return to Scotland marked the beginning of a series of personal and political miscalculations that would eventually seal her fate. Her second marriage to her cousin Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, proved disastrous. Darnley was arrogant, unstable, and deeply jealous of Mary's power. Their union quickly deteriorated into public scandal. In 1567, Darnley was found murdered under mysterious circumstances, his house blown up and his body found strangled in a nearby orchard. Suspicion swirled around Mary and James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, who was accused of orchestrating the murder. Just weeks after Darnley's death, Mary shocked the nation by marrying Bothwell, a man many believed to be her husband's killer. The marriage outraged the Scottish nobility and led to a rebellion. Mary was forced to abdicate the throne in favor of her infant son, James VI, and imprisoned in Loch Leven Castle. After a failed escape and attempt to regain power, she fled across the English border, seeking protection from Queen Elizabeth I. But Mary's arrival in England presented a complex dilemma for Elizabeth. Mary was not only a cousin but also, in the eyes of many Catholics, the legitimate Queen of England. Elizabeth, the Protestant daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, faced constant threats from Catholic powers in Europe and at home. Mary, with her royal blood and Catholic faith, became the focal point of numerous plots to overthrow Elizabeth. For nearly 19 years, Mary was kept under house arrest, moved between castles and manors under the watch of English noblemen. Though confined, she remained politically active, communicating with Catholic supporters and foreign powers. Her imprisonment became a rallying point for Catholic conspirators. The final blow came with the discovery of the Babington Plot in 1586, a conspiracy to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary on the throne. Letters were intercepted allegedly showing Mary's consent to the plan. Though many historians argue about the authenticity of the evidence, it was enough for Elizabeth's advisors to push for Mary's execution. Elizabeth hesitated. To execute a fellow monarch was unprecedented and dangerous. It could invite retribution from Catholic Europe and set a perilous precedent. But pressure from her advisors, fear for her own life, and the mounting political threat forced her hand. Mary was tried for treason, found guilty, and sentenced to death. In the early hours of her execution, Mary dressed with deliberate care. She wore a velvet gown of deep black, the color of martyrdom, and beneath it, a vibrant crimson dress, the Catholic color of martyrdom and defiance. She carried a crucifix and a prayer book. As she stepped into the Great Hall at Fotheringhay, she faced a crowd of spectators, noblemen, officials, and her executioners. She walked with dignity and poise. Her final moments were theatrical and symbolic. Kneeling before the block, she prayed in Latin and forgave her executioners. It took 3 blows of the axe to sever her head. When the executioner held up her severed head and declared, "God save the Queen," Her auburn wig slipped off, revealing her gray, time-worn hair. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Even in death, Mary defied expectations. Under her garments, she wore a crimson petticoat, a final statement of religious defiance and martyrdom. Her small dog, which had hidden beneath her skirts, refused to leave her body until forcibly removed. The execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, sent shockwaves through Europe. Catholic monarchs denounced Elizabeth, and the Pope declared Mary a martyr. While Elizabeth claimed the execution was carried out without her explicit order, few believed her. The killing of a queen, a crowned monarch, was a political earthquake that would haunt Elizabeth for the rest of her life. Elizabeth's guilt was well recorded. She reportedly locked herself in her chambers for days, refusing to see anyone. Some said she wept uncontrollably, not for her cousin's death, but for the dangerous precedent now set, one queen executing another. Others believed her sorrow was deeply personal. Mary was a mirror of all Elizabeth feared: legitimacy, beauty, popularity, and the favor of Catholics across Europe. By ordering her death, Elizabeth had removed a threat, but at the cost of her own conscience. European reaction was swift and severe. In France and Spain, churches held solemn masses in Mary's honor. In Rome, Pope Sixtus V denounced Elizabeth and hailed Mary as a Catholic martyr. Portraits of Mary in crimson were distributed secretly across the continent, often accompanied by the Latin phrase, pro fide et patria, for faith and country. In death, Mary had become more powerful than she ever was in life. The body of Mary was initially buried at Peterborough Cathedral in 1587, but her son James VI, now also James I of England, later ordered her remains moved to Westminster Abbey in 1612. Her tomb now lies opposite that of Elizabeth herself, an eternal irony. Two queens who once warred in spirit, now rest just steps apart in England's most sacred royal sanctuary. Mary's execution would influence centuries of British history. Her son, James I, united the crowns of Scotland and England, fulfilling the very dynastic dream that Mary had been born to inherit. The tragedy of her life, manipulated by men, cursed by ambition, and shattered by betrayal, became a cautionary tale for rulers everywhere. She had loved recklessly, ruled passionately, and died defiantly. Her story remains etched in blood and legend, the beautiful queen with fire in her heart, who met the axe with open eyes and unwavering dignity. And thus ends the saga of Mary, Queen of Scots, royal blood spilled on the stone floor of Fotheringhay, in the name of fear, power, and politics. You've just witnessed one of the darkest punishments in history. But many more still lurk in the shadows. So if you dare, subscribe to Torture Vault, where every scream from the past still echoes.